Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and I love collecting fat quarters. And I belong to a Fat Quater Club from Annie's. It's called Annie's Creative Quilters Fabric Club. And you get a fat quarter bundle in the mail every month, and it comes with a free pattern. And there's all different ones that get sent to you. The free pattern works towards that particular bundle of fat quarters. However, they can be changed up because they're designed for fat quarters. And I always keep the patterns because I can use the patterns over and over again. And I have quite a collection of these patterns. So I need to find a storage container to store my patterns and a couple of the Fat Quater Clubs that I've not got into yet. So I'm going to make a storage box to store all of my patterns in. And the box is also going to fit regular sewing patterns because they're about the same size. So I'm going to be able to use them for the patterns and my patterns. So for this project, I'm going to use one of the bundles of fat quarters. And there's 6 fat quarters in each bundle. Now this came with the free pattern for an apron. And I'm going to put this aside because I'm going to be able to use that with another fat quarter bundle. So I'm going to use this beautiful fabric, and it's from Timeless Treasures, and it's called the Duchess Collection. I'm going to be making a storage box, a tall, thin storage box. So the patterns are going to be able to sit inside the box tall, so I'm going to be able to go through the patterns and at a glance see what is in there. And my box is going to have 4 sides, so I'm going to choose 4 fabrics. So each side is going to be a little different. So I'm going to work with 2 darks and some medium or lights. From each of these 4 pieces, I'm going to cut a strip 6.5 inches wide by 21 inches long. So I'm going to be able to use this long section. Take these long strips and sew them together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. With those strips stitched together, you can take those seams and press them open and flat. Each one of these seams is going to be a corner, so it'll be nice if they're flat. They'll just turn the corner nicer. We now have a piece 21 inches by 24.5 inches. We're going to get a fusible batting or a fusible fleece to put on the back. I would recommend a fleece because it has a little bit more stability than batting. And in this case, I'm going to be using Smooth. It's a low loft fleece, and it's fusible only on one side. I'll need a piece of this fleece cut 20 inches by 24 inches. So it's a little bit smaller than this piece. And we're going to fuse this fleece onto the back. When you center this on the fabric, you're going to have a 1/2 inch on the sides where the seams are and a 1/4 inch running along the outsides. Have the glue side down and fuse this fabric and this fleece together. Once this has been fused and stuck on, we're going to roll those raw edges onto the batting. We're going to use that batting as a guide. So that edge will help fold that fabric over. This needs to be done to all 4 sides. Now I like to just add a little bit of glue to hold those on. And I'm just going to run a little bit along that edge and then fold that fabric over. And I can take it to the iron and press it so that that glue stays and dries. And do that all the way around. That fleece gives us a nice straight edge that it's very easy to glue on. Now we're going to take this entire thing and fold it in half. We get to match up those seams to the front and the back. This is the box body. Now we're going to make spines so that box can turn into a box. You can hand sew this or you can machine stitch it. We just need to stitch in the ditch all the way down on these 3 lines. We do want to match them up as best as we can to the other side. We now have 2 pockets and 2 side openings and the folded top. We need to press that top and give it a nice tight press mark because that is going to be the top of the box. Once that is done, you can see how that makes the hinges to the box. In these pockets, we're going to be able to put cardboard, and that's going to give it some stability. The cardboard needs to be just a little bit smaller than this pocket. It will work out to be about 9.5 inches by 5.25 inches. And it's just going to be able to slide right in and have that go right up to the top. And that fleece is going to make it easy to go in. We need to be able to close up this little opening. So leave a little bit of space with the cardboard. And put the cardboard in both the center little pockets. You can see how now this is making the hinges to the box, and it's going to stay nice and straight. For the two sides, we need to put in the cardboard. We need to have room all the way around the outside so the edges can close. Push the cardboard in so it's nice and firm against the edges, and we need that on both sides. We're going to want to join this up so that the box actually will look like a box and have 4 sides. So we're going to whip stitch the 2 edges together. A whip stitch is very easy to do. I'm going to be using 2 strands of thread together, and we're going to go and make one motion starting from the bottom, going through all the layers and back up. Always going up, and we're going to stitch all 4 layers together at the same time. So start on the corner. You only need to take a little bit of fabric and 2 layers on the second side. And again, you're only taking a little bit of fabric, not touching the cardboard at all. Then pull that needle and thread right up to the top. And that's your first stitch. Now repeat, starting from the bottom, keeping your thread out of the way, and pull up. So you're making these loops, and you're just going to continue starting from the bottom, going through all the layers and up. And with a little tug, all those layers are going to go together, and it's going to close off that edge. And these are the small stitches that close it all up. It has a nice finish down the edge, but we still have the opening along the bottom. We need to get a piece of cardboard to fit the bottom. Start with a 6-inch bottom and adjust it from there. It should fit nicely along the edge without any fabric sticking out. The 4 corners are going to need to be slightly rounded, and that will give it a nice finish. Infuse the fleece onto both sides, and we can trim off that edge after. If you find the cardboard is pounced up a little bit, while it's still warm, you just need to hold it down until it cools down, and it will go back to its flat shape. And I'm just going to trim off all of the extra. We need to cover the bottom with some fabric, and we're going to gift wrap it, and that's going to save some time. We're going to start with a nice big piece of fabric at about 11.5 inches. We're going to put that on the fabric on the diagonal, and then we get to gift wrap it and fold up those corners. But before we do that, we're going to glue the fabric over and stick it right onto those corners so the corners have a nice finished edge. And then they're going to be able to be folded over and they'll look nice. So the first thing we need to do is glue down the fabric on the 4 corners. Once those 4 corners are done and that glue has dried, we're going to be able to gift wrap the bottom. And just like we would gift wrap a gift, we're going to smooth out the fabric along the cardboard bottom. And as we go, it's going to have a nice finished look. So take it to the iron and glue each point down, working your way around. Just have a nice finished edge, just like you would wrapping a gift. And now you can see how nice the back side looks. And when we turn it over, we have a beautiful bottom. So before we put the bottom on, we're going to have to glue these little edges together. It'll just be a lot easier to whip stitch, and that way we'll make sure that all of the inside is as nice as the outside. So run a little bit of glue and iron that down so that it's all stuck together. Now that the bottom is done, we're going to be able to stitch that onto the sides. We're going to use the same stitch as we did for the side, a whip stitch. We're going to take a stitch through each of those fabrics and just pull. You're going to go right back and do another stitch. As you go around the bottom, you're going to find that this fabric is going to go right around that curve. We now have a nice finished box. Now we can leave it this way, or we can make a top. For the lid, our cardboard needs to be 8.5 inches square. From there, do a 1-inch line all the way around, so that center is going to be 6.5 inches. And we need to cut off those 1-inch squares on the corner. Once the corners are cut out, we need to cut a very thin layer on the marks all the way around. We only want to cut the top portion, and that way this is going to fold over. But if you cut all the way through, that's fine, because we're going to be able to put this all together after. So I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and just do a small cut going through the top layer. By doing that, what I've done is I've created a hinge. I want to do that to all 4 sides. We're going to take that fusible fleece, and with that glue side, we're going to iron it onto the back so we can cut out that shape and iron it onto the back. Now, if this piece has fallen off, this is the time just to iron it on. And that fleece, we'll tape that back together and make that a hinge. For the top piece, we need a piece of fleece at 6.5 inches to go on the center of the box. And then for those arms, fuse on 1-inch strips. We're going to glue fabric onto the back side. An 8-inch square is going to work great. So we're going to have a little bit hanging out all the way around. And you can just rub that glue stick on, or you can use white glue, fabric glue, whatever you want. You just want to attach this entire piece on. When it's glued down, we can cut off that little fabric from the corners. When that's been stuck on, make sure that the hinges are still going to work. We're going to need a big piece of fabric at about 11.5 inches. To glue these corners together, we can use a little piece of the same fleece. So we're going to fold those corners together and use it just like a tape, and tape those corners so that they stay nice and square. You can either glue them on or iron them on. Once those edges have been secured, we can cover it now or add another piece of fleece. I like another piece just because I like the look of the batting, and I want to cover this little space of cardboard where the hinges were. You just need to get a piece of fleece or batting that's a little bit bigger so that it wraps over and covers those edges. And you can just press or glue that on. Now with that little extra piece on the top, it covers that hinge so we have a nice smooth look. With that big 11.5 inch piece of fabric, you're going to be able to put it on top of the box. You're going to want your fabric to come in to the inside. You can either leave the raw edge or just do a little fold on the edge before you fold it over. When I have the 2 sides folded over with that little seam allowance, do the 2 other sides. And yes, you can glue those seams down. We need to have enough fabric that it's going to come over and wrap a little bit inside the box. Now, it's going to be really hard to get an iron in here to iron all of the glue dry, so we're going to have to let the glue set. So we're going to do 2 sides at a time and then wait for them to dry. You don't need to glue the top at all. We're only going to be gluing a little bit along the sides to hold it inside here. And to hold those edges down while they dry, I'm going to use these office clips. But you can use clothespins or even quilter's clips. I'm going to run some glue along the outside 2 edges. Just take this and roll it to the inside. Gently smooth that with your hands. Take each side and fold them over. Just press that seam down. And that's when I'm going to put the clips to hold them. And do both edges and both corners. Once that's clipped, I can work on this side. Just pull the fabric so it's a little bit tight. Clip it down and then work on the sides. I find the glue will only take about 10 minutes to dry. Then you can take off the clips. The next thing is to iron these little points down. These points are going to be just like gift wrapping. They're going to wrap over to the front. So if you iron these seams down, they'll be nice and flat. So when they wrap over, it's going to look like you have some nice finished corners. I'm going to put a little glue and wrap those over. And clip that side down. And we can go on to the next. And clip. And when all that glue is dry, we have a nice finish to the inside lid and a nice finish on the outside. And you can see where it looks like it's a little mitered corner. With that lid done, the box is complete. So we have a beautifully finished box from all angles. Now I can take my patterns and store them in the box. My fat quarter bundles can also go in the box. And if you want, you can still put some sewing patterns in there. So for this project, we needed a fusible fleece, some cardboard. We did a little bit of hand sewing to finish up those edges and put that bottom on. Beautiful fabric and a glue stick. Now you can use any glue stick or you can use glue that is designed for fabric. And thank you, Annie's Creative Quilters Fabric Club, for making such nice fat quarter bundles with the free patterns. I'll put a link in the description for you. And thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing and gluing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.